أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. So when you're gathering with the remembrance of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, as a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana wa Azimina wa Shafi'i dhunubina Rasulullah and his honorable and purified progeny, recite the second salawat. For Allah to shower onto this gathering with His infinite mercy and compassion, and to hasten the reappearance of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Jannah, a young Muslim girl, calls her mom one day during the month of Ramadan and says to her mom, "Guess what happened last night? I was at the rooftop of my building after iftar, and I was looking at the skies, spending time by myself, and there was a young man there. And he was smoking a cigarette. And then he began to read the Quran, so I realized that he's Muslim. We had a very long discussion. It ended almost at Fajr time. And there was a big bond and a lot of chemistry. And I really like this guy. So her mom says, "But you just met him last night. What are you talking about?" Give it some time. The next day after iftar, once again, though they had not planned, but they met each other at the same place. And they spoke of their childhood. And they spoke of how they both ended up in Chicago and why they live in this particular building. And the challenges that they had gone through as Muslims growing up in this country. There was a lot of chemistry, and the bond became stronger and stronger, day in, day out. Towards the end of the month of Ramadan, the young man, Muhammad, says to her that today, my sister's coming over for iftar, so I would like for you to join as well. So she met his sister. They also became friends. They became close. A few months later, as they were very close, she still didn't know what he does for a living. She went to the emergency room. She was sick, and she sees the doctor there is this young, handsome Muhammad, who she's met. So she even grew more fond of him. And they were engaged. Though she had a different background and he had a different background. They were engaged, and after their engagement, something strange happened. One day they had gone out, and when they came back home, Dr. Muhammad grabbed her by the throat, choking her. She couldn't breathe. So she's struggling. She's telling him, what are you doing? Why? And he says, why were you flirting with the waiter? He said, what do you mean I was flirting with the waiter? I was just being who I am. No, you were flirting with the waiter. I saw the way you were looking at him. If you do that again, I'll kill you. This is a completely different person. This guy just transformed into something completely different. She could not fathom the idea that this guy is choking her. And she feels scared and she feels threatened. How could this be? So she goes and she sleeps in a different room. She locks the door. The next morning, over breakfast, seems like he doesn't even know what had happened. He's trying to start conversation. He's trying to be funny. And she's not having it, of course. So he says to her, listen, I beg you, I am sorry. I just don't know what happened to me last night. I was crazy. It was uncalled for. I do apologize. Please forgive me. Can we pretend it never happened? Sure, why not? Months pass and nothing seems to be abnormal. Until they come home again and he turns on the jacuzzi. Once it's full of water, he grabs her by the hair and he puts her head, starts waterboarding her. Again, she's clueless. What in the world is happening? This guy is literally trying to kill me. And he says to her, you were flirting with my friend. I saw the way you were speaking with him. I saw the way you were talking to him. I saw the way you were smiling at him. And she pleads for her life. She begs him, don't kill me. Waterboarding, they say, is one of the most brutal forms of torture. And she had to live through that. So the next morning when he leaves, she packs up her stuff and she goes and gets her own place. He tries calling, he tries texting, nothing happens. But the problem is that Jenna realizes that she's pregnant. And she tells his sister. She's still not speaking with him until she gives birth to a baby girl. When she gives birth to the baby girl, she allows him to come and visit at the hospital. As soon as they see each other, they start crying. He hugs the baby, he kisses the baby, and there next to the baby are the divorce papers that he's ought to sign. And she explains it to him very briefly, that I never told you, but I also grew up in a household where my father used to abuse my mom. And that is why I grew so fond of you so quickly, and I was so attached so quickly, and I fell in love so quickly. And the most unfortunate thing is being broken and hurt by the person that you trust and you love. And I simply cannot allow our daughter to go through that. I cannot allow her to watch you beat me. I cannot allow her to live through the same suffering that I went through. And this, my beloveds, is the story of millions of people in this country. Millions of people around the world. Millions of individuals who are hurt at the hands of their loved ones. The person they trust the most, the person they love the most, the person that they would want to run towards when they're in pain, when they're in need, when they're going through agony, is the same person that is literally torturing them and threatening their lives. And I spoke of childhood trauma last Muharram. Many of you remember. I say we cannot even judge people like Muhammad, because he must have had an horrible upbringing with a lot of trauma. Oprah Winfrey says when she was the most powerful woman, she lived at a skyrise. That is the most secure building in America. She has her own private security. She had her own helipad. And she would arrive, go through the helipad, go through the elevator into her bedroom. She says, after a long day, I have not rested. I would go into my bedroom and I would not be able to fall asleep. I'd feel scared. And she told herself, this is because some people know where I live. So what would she do? She would grab her personal assistant. They would leave the apartment, the penthouse, that is worth millions of dollars, and they would go to a neighboring hotel. She would check into that hotel and fall asleep. At her own bed, she could not fall asleep, and she always asked herself, what in the world is wrong with you? You live in the most secure building, you have your own security, the building has security. Why can't you feel secure and fall asleep in your own home? Until she met a psychiatrist, and she's wrote this book with him, Dr. Perry. He told her, go and look in your childhood. What's happened in your childhood? So she says to Dr. Perry, listen to this. She says when she was 5 years old, because you know, Oprah, she didn't live with her mom because her mom was a maid. She used to clean people's homes for $50 a week. So when Oprah was born, her mom dropped her off to her grandparents saying, I cannot afford an extra mouth to feed. So she grew up with her grandparents. At 5 years old, her grandpa developed dementia. So at night he would come to choke the grandma. And the grandma would be awake, so she would push him away. But one night the grandma was fast asleep. And he almost choked the grandma to death. And as a 5-year-old, Oprah says, I would be stuck. I wouldn't even be able to move. I would be stuck in bed. So afraid. What's going to happen? She said, even when they put a lock at the door and my grandfather could no longer enter our bedroom to choke my grandmother, I would be falling asleep with one eye open, thinking, what if he breaks the lock? What if he gets in? Her experiencing this at the age 5 is catching up to her when she's 50 years old. She could not fall asleep in the most secure building. This is what childhood trauma does to us. So this woman, Jenna, made a firm decision that she no longer wants this cycle to continue. She doesn't want her daughter to go through this. And as for Muhammad, he needs to go and seek help. He needs to find the childhood trauma in his life that caused him to be where he is today. Because brothers and sisters, my dear friends, we can never experience happiness. We can never experience happiness with others before we are content and at peace with ourselves. Don't think that somehow some Romeo is going to come, some Juliet's going to come and sweep you off your feet, and now you're going to be falling in love and everything is going to be milk and honey. If I am suffering from the inside, I cannot receive happiness from anyone, even if I love them and they love me. The unfortunate scenario is that we will both be hurt. Don't look for happiness, and say the person responsible for my happiness is my father and my mother and my grandparents and my husband and my friends and my aunt and my relatives. Truly, the person responsible for your happiness is you. You're responsible for your happiness. You can build your own happiness. You can build your own state of peace of mind and tranquility within you. And when we gather, my dearest friends, in the month of Ramadan, and half of Ramadan is already over. We have 2 more weeks with Ramadan. Allah says this Ramadan is so special. It is so special. And He's offering specials in this month. And they are better than any other specials. Better than Christmas specials and Valentine specials and New Year specials. And those specials are offered by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator and the owner of this universe. And He says, Shahru Ramadan. Does He say it is the month of Siyam? No. Because some people cannot do Siyam in Ramadan for whatever reason, right? Does it make it less blessed for them? No. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه أحسنتم قرآن. It is the month of the Quran, the spring of the Quran. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس. It is a form of guidance for humanity. هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. And truths from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, promises from the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah I'll speak of the promises of Allah in the Holy Quran. But I want to tell you this, that when somebody promises you, I don't care who they are, your father, your mother, your husband, your president, prime minister, scholar, millionaire, billionaire, your boss, if they make a promise to you, there's always a possibility they cannot fulfill their promise. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. I promised $10,000, but I don't know if I'm going to own $1 next year. We don't know the future. We don't know what it holds for us, right? But Allah's promises are different. That is why promises made in the Holy Quran are made in the past tense. Have you realized that? Promises in the Quran are made in the past tense. Why? Because Allah the Almighty is the only one who can make promises in the past tense. Meaning to me and you, imagine they've already happened. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونَ. Once Allah desires, it is done. Though it may take a year, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, but when Allah decides and wants and desires, it shall be. And when we gather in the month of Ramadan, brothers and sisters, I believe one of the most important discussions, especially today, especially in this country, must revolve around relationships and families. Because today the institution of family at large is under threat. The dynamics of family are under threat. I personally travel and I see that the divorce rate is skyrocketing. I meet people, they tell me, Sayyid, my wife doesn't appreciate me. She doesn't love me. I say, okay, why? He says, because I work so hard. I work so hard. They go to vacations. She buys whatever she wants. She drives the car that she wants. She goes shopping every week. I've given her that Black American Express. What else does she want? She buys the furniture that she wants every few years. We upgrade our home. It's because I work so hard. And she still doesn't appreciate me. And the wife says the same exact thing, that my husband doesn't love me. Why doesn't your husband love you? Because he doesn't spend time with me. He doesn't spend time with the family. If he really loves us, he would spend time with us. And I've said this, brothers and sisters, and I'll say it over and over again. There is no such thing as a perfect family, a perfect marriage, a perfect husband, a perfect wife. In fact, if you are waiting for Mr. Perfect to come, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Because Mr. Perfect doesn't exist. There's no such thing as Mr. Perfect. And if you're waiting for that perfect girl, guess what? You're also going to be waiting for a long time because she doesn't exist. And once that family is created, and we want that perfect family, the family that we see on TV, the family that we see on Instagram, that is always smiling and laughing, and always they happen to be on the beach, and when they're there it's always sunny. But there is one thing that allows us to go through the troubles that we experience in our journey, within the family, within our marriage, within our relationships, whether it's a husband with his wife, whether it's a father with his son, whether it's a son with his father, whether it's a daughter with her father. There is one thing that allows us to survive, or else the family will break. It is bound to break. It will be shattered. And that is forgiveness. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. This is the key. The key is in the Quran. Allah offers the solution to all of humanity. He says, number one, you must show your love, demonstrate your love, and there has to be rahmah, forgiveness. Forgive. Forgive as much as you can. If you have extra love, extra time, extra emotions, extra care, then the very first station is your family. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best of you is not the one that has the figure 8 here of salah, sujood. It's not what Rasulullah says. The best of you is not the one with the longest beard. The best of you is not the one that has gone to so many umrah and ziyarah and hajj and sits in the front row of salah jama'ah. This is not my words. Rasulullah says, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best of you is the best with his family, with his loved ones. What good would so many ziyarat and umrah do if I am not speaking to my own uncle, if I do not help my aunt, if I do not ask about my grandparents, if I have a sour relationship with my son or my daughter? And while I see those individuals complaining, the husband and the wife, I find that they both love each other. But they are not keeping the Quranic ayah in perspective. That the Quran says you must show your love to one another. So this man thinks that if he's a workaholic, if he's going out working 24/7 and he's abrogating their financial luxury, then this is how he's communicating and showing his love. And she says that I don't want that. I want time. So they love each other, but they don't know how to communicate with one another. They don't know how to show their love to one another. So how do we show love to people? How do we show love to people? If you go to Imam al-Hasan, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he was very skilled as Sayyid Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, the master of youth of paradise, and showing love to people, even his enemies. As you heard, the Shaykh beautifully told you the story of how a person comes, he's the enemy of Imam al-Hasan, and he leaves as a friend and a beloved to him. And this is a skill. And when we gather to celebrate the blessed name of Imam al-Hasan, this is what we must learn. Where he was born, which year he was born, where he slept, what he ate. is insignificant compared to the principles of akhlaq and morality that we can take away from his life. Number one lesson, brothers and sisters, of how we ought to communicate love, especially within the family, is to spend quality time with one another. Not time in close proximity, but quality time. That means the phones must be off. That means you look at the person in the eye. You know, when you spend quality time with someone and they enjoy your presence, you can tell by the language of their body. By their body language, you can tell how this person is feeling. And if the person you're speaking with is constantly looking at their phone, and they're constantly looking elsewhere, and they're constantly looking for a way for this meeting to end and escape, they'll stop talking. They'll never open up with their emotions. The trust bond will never be created. That is something we control through our body language. And spending quality time is very important. Today people spend time in close proximity. They sit at the dinner table and everybody's on their phone. They want to go out together, they go and watch a movie when they're not even exchanging a single word with each other now. And I'll tell you one thing, even attending majalis, it needs to become a family thing. I see this less of a problem in Dearborn, but I see it elsewhere, so I'm speaking to those who will watch me online. If you've segregated the families through any barriers, whether it's language, whether it's the physical location, you're sending some of them through one door and the others through another door. One of them is hearing another language and the other one, and you're dividing the family. This is a problem. Coming together in the month of Ramadan so that the family going home can speak about their experience. What did we learn? What did we hear? How do we feel? So that they can bond together. There is no reason for us to separate families, especially in Islamic institutions, especially in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the most beloved institution to Allah is the family. The most sacred institution to Allah is the family. So it is important for fathers especially not to treat their homes like bed and breakfast. He comes home, he takes a shower, he eats, the next day he's out. 6 days a week, and the 7th day he's watching football. Your family needs you. They did a study on kids that cut themselves. You know cutting? Some kids cut themselves. And they bleed. And you're thinking, why would you do that? Why would you just randomly cut yourself? It's painful, huh? Especially with paper cuts. They're the worst. But those kids are regularly cutting themselves. They did a study. And the study indicates that it's because those kids are neglected at home. There is no love coming from home. Neglect is real. And you cannot let your family feel neglected. Don't let them feel neglected. Even your parents, especially at an older age. واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. You must be humble and total humility for your parents, especially when they grow old. Number 2 is how we communicate with each other. Words are powerful. Words are powerful. With your word, you can soften someone, win their hearts, make their day beautiful, and you can destroy them. That is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says the wounds created by the tongue are worse than the wounds created by the sword. Take someone and cut them with a knife, they will heal and they will forget. But cut them with your tongue, sometimes they'll never heal. They'll never get over it. And this is what we learn from the Ahl al-Bayt, the way they spoke to each other. Amir al-Mu'mineen says to Imam al-Hasan, Bunayya Hasan, wajadtuka ba'dhi, la bal wajadtuka kulli, hatta idha shay'an asabaka asabani, wa idha dana minka al-maut dana minni. Oh my son Hasan, I found you to be a part of me. Then he says, no, but I found you to be all of my existence. If something painful comes towards your way, I feel the pain. If you feel pain, I feel pain. If you feel joy, I feel joy. You are so special to me. And do not criticize in a way where it does not reflect your love. And the way we speak with each other, if we criticize one another, don't let it reflect lack of love. Even when you discipline your children, and when you speak to them and you discipline them, and discipline is very important, don't think, oh, because my son, if I discipline him, he's not going to feel loved. No. Don't say that. Because the next thing that you know, he's addicted to opioid. You have to discipline your children. But make sure that they know it's out of love. So you tell them, I am disciplining you. You are grounded. This has been taken away from you. This decision has been made because I love you and I have to protect you. من لم يؤدبه الأبوان أدبه الزمان. If I do not discipline you, the world out there is tough. It will discipline you. I would rather discipline you myself. And sometimes the word discipline is viewed in negative connotation. It may mean there's, yelling and slapping and punching. No. Discipline is done with the way we speak with one another and by leading by example. So if you want to tell your son or your daughter or your wife something where they can grow as better people. Oh, you're so stupid. You can never get this right. You're good for nothing. How many times you've tried to cook this and you never got it right? I'd rather you not cook this at all. How come my sister's husband is taking them to a vacation every year, but you have this lousy job that barely lets you take us to McDonald's on the weekends? You're good for nothing. Why don't you get a better job? This type of language is never constructive. A wife telling her husband that he's no good will destroy him. You might as well get fuel and burn him, because he needs the affirmation from you. He needs you to tell him that, look, I don't care how much money you bring, as long as you're bringing halal rizq and you're an honorable man and you're trustworthy and people are not accusing you of being a thief and a liar, then you're good. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you more rizq. That will encourage him, not telling him you're good for nothing. And if you want your son and your daughter to grow and to be successful, you have to build their self-esteem. Even when he's 6 years old and you take him to play soccer, and he doesn't know how to play soccer, and he tells you, Daddy, what do you think? Am I going to be the next Messi? And you tell him, well, it depends how you spell it. Because this was real messy. You really think you're going to be a professional soccer player? Instead, tell him, yes, you're even going to be better than Messi. So you'll be a Ronaldo. And it's okay. It's okay. In fact, the only place that we are allowed to lie, and it's not considered a lie, is to amend relationships within the family. The other day, I was speaking to a brother, and he's a very successful businessman. So his wife, out of boredom, started a business, an online business. So she says to him, hey, what do you think of my business? He says, it sucks. I'm sorry, but this is no business. You call this a business? And she was very hurt, so they came to me. I said, listen, man. She doesn't need to have a multi-million-dollar business like you do, but words of affirmation will actually allow her to be successful. You have this talent, you have so many years of experience. Share that with her. Take her by the hand. Lead so that she may have a successful business. But putting her down like that is not the way. And I want to conclude with this, the last item. There are many ways for us to express our love to one another. But inshallah, we will continue with you tomorrow. I want to say this, that is very important as well. And that is to respect each other's privacy. That is actually a sign of love. Don't think because I love this person that I have to supervise everything that they do, and I have to go into their phone, and I have to read the messages, and I have to know exactly what he's doing, and I have to know exactly what she's doing. This is actually a sign that there is no trust. You have to give people their space. You have to respect their privacy. Oh, I love him so much, I'm going to be stuck with him 24 hours. This is not good. You need to give people their space. Give your children their space. Give your wife her space. Give your husband his space. Respect each other's privacy. Love does not mean that we have to be stuck up in each other's business 24/7. For us to have enduring, satisfying, loving families, inshallah, we will continue our journey and our discussion with you tomorrow. But now, it is Thursday night, the 15th of Ramadan, the eve of the birth of Sayyid Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. It's a great night. Let us raise our hands to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in supplication. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك أملي ورجائي يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بما أنا أهله وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.